This is the Benefits Buzz Podcast, your weekly pulse on what's happening in the world of employee benefits. Brought to you by your friends at WEX, who believe in simplifying benefits for everyone. Now listen up and let's get buzzed!
Welcome to the Benefits Buzz Podcast, where we bring you the latest news and insights on employee benefits and workplace trends. I'm your host, Nathan Coverstone, and I'm excited to be joining you for Season 6 of our show. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a benefits professional with over 7 years of experience in the industry. I started as an account manager and now lead our employer custom marketing team. Over my time with WEX, I've worked with employers of all sizes, from startups to Fortune 500 companies, helping them administer effective benefit plans that meet the needs of their employees. In this season of Benefits Buzz, we'll be covering a wide range of topics that are top of mind for HR and benefits professionals. We'll be talking about everything from the latest healthcare policy developments to the future of remote work. And we'll be featuring interviews with industry experts and thought leaders who are shaping that future. We'll also be adding HR professionals as co-hosts this season, allowing us to dive deep into some of the most pressing issues facing HR and benefits professionals today, all while creating a culture of inclusivity and belonging. But don't worry, we'll still be bringing you the same great content you've come to expect from Benefit Buzz. We'll be breaking down complex topics into bite-sized pieces that are easy to understand, and we'll be providing actionable insights that you can use to improve your benefits programs and your workplace culture. After all, our goal is to simplify the business of running a business. To kick things off, we invite you to check out our first webinar of the new year titled, "Your Employees Are Enrolled, Now What?" The work of open enrollment is behind you, but now it's time to shift participants from how to choose their benefits to how they use their benefits to ensure a more positive experience. We've compiled a panel of internal experts to share tips and best practices to help you best support your employees in the new plan year. So join us for Season 6 of the Benefit Buzz podcast, and let's explore the future of work together. We'll be releasing new episodes every 2 weeks, so be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss a single episode. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Benefit Buzz.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session. Your employees are enrolled. Now what? We're so glad you could join us as we discuss some of the best practices when it comes to the many ways you can help your employees get the most from their benefits throughout the year, not just during open enrollment. Today's webinar is also going to be a little different than our usual fare, so if you're a regular, this is going to be a little more interesting than our norm, in that we have several experts here who are going to be teaching us about the ins and outs of today's topic. So helming today's discussion is our moderator, Nathan Coverstone, who is himself an expert in connecting and supporting with employers here at WEX. And joining him are several panelists who bring expert knowledge from both sides of the aisle when it comes to supporting our employers and employees. These experts are Emma Knutson, who specializes in supporting our participants or employee service teams, as well as Kayla Hansen and Liz Hill, who both specialize in bringing solutions to our employers here at WEX.
And thank you all very much for joining our webinar today. Your employees are enrolled, now what? We're really excited to spend this time with you. So over the next hour, we're going to talk through how you can assess and debrief from your open enrollment experience, what went well, and where there may be some opportunities for improvement. We'll also talk through why having some benefit literacy is important to ensure your employees get the most out of their enrollments. Finally, we're going to talk through ways to increase your engagement and have a successful plan year. Now, of course, we're also going to have some fun as we go. There are going to be opportunities to comment, answer polls, and ask questions. We encourage you to engage throughout our time together. We want this to be collaborative so we can all learn from each other as we go. So go ahead and we'll move on to the next slide. So before you dive into the new benefits plan year, it's really important to take some time to measure how the open enrollment season went. We'd love for you to share some ways you found success in measuring how open enrollment went for your company in specific. Could be a post-open enrollment survey to measure specific metrics. It might be something else. Please go ahead and put your answers in the chat, and I'll share them with the audience as they come in. Who's going to be brave? Employee feedback. That's a huge one. Employee satisfaction survey feedback. I love that you're all really leaning into going directly to the source, your employees, to find out how they felt about the open enrollment. How are you guys feeling with your own experience yourself from the HR team perspective? A focus group, I saw that go by. That's a great idea. I love being able to really segment off some of your experts to get some feedback. Relieved it's over. Somebody after my own heart right there. Certainly open enrollment has some moments that it can be a little bit touch and go. And luckily, that's why we're in this webinar today, to talk through ways that we can continue to improve, making that a successful experience for you. So let's go ahead and we'll move on to the next slide. Now, Liz, you work with employers of all sizes every day, and you meet with them in Q1 to debrief on how their open enrollment went. So in your experience, how can employers determine what needs improvement or what went well for the next year? For example, are there any specific metrics or resources that you think they should reference?
Yeah, sure, Nathan. So again, my name is Liz Hill. I am an account executive in WEX's benefits administration area. So what we're focused on in Q1, and actually I happen to be in Chicago right now. I have one of these meetings this afternoon with a client. We call it our Wrap and Review. And really what a Wrap and Review contains, it's just an opportunity to go ahead and look at your metrics, like look at your enrollment metrics. If you had a passive enrollment, what percent of your employees actively engaged, right? So for example, in a passive enrollment, we typically see employers having about 50% engagement. Anything higher is really good. What do your call center statistics look like, right? What was the pattern of enrollment? If you have a call center that helps support you, did everybody wait until the last 2 days? Unfortunately, it's not uncommon to kind of see a big spike at the end. We talk about kind of flattening the curve with regards to the call center, trying to spread out that communication. So the only way you know how people are engaging is if you go ahead and get that data now to see what the pattern looked like. We also spend a lot of time focused on, what went well, like what are the things that we did during the open enrollment period and we want to continue to do. And then of course, everybody's most focused on what didn't go perhaps so well, right? So the questions to ask, 80% engaged, like that's awesome. If you, in a passive enrollment, if you got 80% engagement from your employees, that's fantastic. 75%, that's great. So that really means that you are doing a good job with your communications during the enrollment window. So, look at that data. And then everyone's focused on what improvements can we make, right? So things to think about, how was your January, right? So the open enrollment window typically happens in October and November, but really the true test, I think, is what does January look like, right? Do you have a lot of people waking up saying, oh, open enrollment, I had to re-elect my FSA, I didn't know that. Or, what level of appeals, what do your appeals look like, right? After you get past that first paycheck, I think that's really telling. So, hopefully by now, in the middle of February, things have kind of settled out. And so it's a good opportunity to say, okay, capture all of those learnings now so that, we can feed that into the next part of the cycle. We like to say that open enrollment really happens all year round, right? We're either planning for it, having the event, debriefing from it, and then, jumping into the next cycle. So, that's something that we work with with our clients. I know a lot of people, I saw a lot of, I'm just happy it's over and I don't have to do that again until fall. But again, like capture those learnings now while it's fresh in your mind.
That's really, really good feedback. Thank you very much, Liz. I know that you're in the trenches doing this day in and day out. So the insights that you're able to bring to this webinar are really, truly invaluable. Thank you so much. So after you've debriefed and open enrollment is behind you, you're faced with a new plan year. So what do you anticipate are going to be the biggest challenges you face as it relates to your employee population and their benefits this year? Let's go ahead and have you share some of the challenges that you think you're going to face in the chat. I'm going to look at those and I'll talk those through for everybody. Compliance and competitiveness, new providers, cost, education on how to use benefits. I think that's a huge one. You know, it is so important for employees to enroll in these benefits, but then also to actually have the opportunity to get the most out of them. And education is absolutely integral to that, no question. Showing people around online systems. I love that, so they can truly take advantage of their benefits. It's great to be able to take advantage of those tools that really are going to provide them the best opportunity. Reaching all employees with communications. That's a great language barriers, communication. I love these. The great thing is all of these, while absolutely challenging, and they absolutely have an opportunity dressed in work clothes, they are absolutely achievable. And I think that as we go through this webinar, we're going to give you some great tips and tricks that really give you a great starting point, a jump off point to have some success in these areas. Understanding the benefits, getting people to understand the importance of reviewing their benefits and enrolling. Yeah, that's a great one as well. There's lots of times that I think people get so caught up in their day-to-day grind that they forget that their employer is giving them some wonderful opportunities to take advantage of these benefits. And they really do need to carve some time. It's in their best interest, and it's in the best interest of your companies. Being available and present for benefit questions. I love that one. That's a great one. So we have surveyed thousands of employers at the end of last year and asked them this exact question. Kayla, I would love if you could share what they said some of their top challenges were.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Nathan. Again, my name is Kayla Hansen. I'm a senior solution analyst here with WEX. I work with the employer side. Also, I get participant engagement as well, but more so on the employer side here with WEX. With the survey, the top 3 challenges employers face, the top 3 came to budget, benefits education, and communication. While we can't help you with our budget, our goal is to give you some tips and tricks using the rest of our time together to share how you can tackle benefits, education, and communication to get higher benefits engagement throughout the year. Communication and education does equal benefits literacy.
All right. Thanks, Kayla. Hi, everyone. Like Nathan said earlier, I'm Emma Knutson, and I primarily work with our call center team or our participant or employee-facing team. So it is time for our first polling question. So Natalie, if you can pop that up, thank you. So the question is, what percentage of employees admit they have somewhat or no understanding of the health insurance benefits their company provides? Your options are 15%, 33%, 50%, or 81%. I'll give you about 30 seconds or so to pop your answer in there. Have about 10 seconds. If you haven't answered, go ahead and do so. All right. You can go ahead and end that for us, Natalie. Thank you. Yeah, so it looks like we are right in the middle bucket there. So the correct answer here is 33%. So that is pretty alarming. I think that a third of your employees either have somewhat or no understanding of the health insurance benefits that your company is providing. Go ahead and move to the next slide, please. Thank you. So just talking a little bit further about why benefits literacy is so important. So first and foremost, retaining your employees. So having an attractive benefit package and an attractive benefit package that your employees understand can be a great tool to retain those employees. We all know that it costs time and money to get new employees in the door. So anything that you can do to help retain those employees is going to help you out in the long run. 57% of limited FSAs and 42% of medical FSAs had some amount of forfeiture at the end of the plan year. So this is a big one. We know that no one likes losing money, especially money that your employee use on their medical expenses at the beginning of the plan year. So we want to make sure that employees really understand those benefits, understand how they work, so that they can really maximize those dollars and avoid losing them at the end of the year. And then this last one is the one that I personally find the most alarming on the slide here. 40% of Americans are reducing spend on household essentials like groceries and gas to cover healthcare costs. So in today's economy, we want to make sure that your employees are really getting the most take-home pay that they can. We know that healthcare is expensive. We don't want your employees to have to sacrifice spending money on some household essentials like food or gas in order to cover their healthcare costs. So really understanding what their benefits are, how they interact together, and how your employees can really make the most of their benefits, again, can just help boost their take-home pay.
I really appreciate that insight, Emma. I know that you're actually working with a lot of participants and get that feedback directly. And so it's really good to hear that perspective. You know, the reality is benefit literacy is absolutely an issue. If we want your employees to be able to take advantage of these benefits, we've got to make sure that we're communicating to them in a way that's going to make sense and that they're able to consume and understand. Liz, what are the most common terms that employees tend to find confusing? And how do you recommend that employers maybe simplify those terms for employees so they can better understand their benefits?
Sure. I think, everyone on this call will probably agree. I mean, benefits is a space that is full of technical jargon, right? Just think about it. HMO, PPO, OOP, out-of-pocket max, FSA, limited purpose FSA, dependent care FSA, right? These are all terms that if you grew up in the benefit space, as probably many people on this call did, are very kind of comfortable to us. And I think it's important that when we think about the audience that we're trying to communicate with, right, these are all very foreign terms. So we tend as benefit practitioners to use a lot of jargon, and it's something we're very comfortable with. But really, when you're communicating to employees, you have to really step outside of that and think about, so for example, employer contribution, like say it like it is, right? Money that we as your employer give you. I mean, free money. So a perfect example is, WEX this year for its own participants introduced a lifestyle spending account. So it's $250, an employer contribution of $250 to spend on healthy lifestyle things like gym memberships or, getting a massage or, there's a wide array. And the communications around that, if you want to get employees' attention, like there's nothing like free money, free $250, right? So again, eliminating the jargon and the benefits lingo and really trying to get right to brass tacks will get, help with the employee understanding, right, of the messages. So pre-tax, like what does that mean? Sometimes you really have to kind of paint the picture of when we say pre-tax, what is that? That's really kind of free money, right? Money that you're saving and is not going to the government. Another good example is out-of-pocket maximum, right? A lot of employees with all of this jargon, they tend to get lost. And what that means is that they're not very confident about really understanding their benefits. So, boil it down like, hey, out-of-pocket maximum is the most you have to pay before insurance will kick in. So, I think it's really important that and I've seen employers do this well, right? So I have some employers who have focus groups of just regular employees. They'll write a communication and say, hey, can you, let me bounce this off of you. Do you understand the language, right? So I think as benefit practitioners, we sometimes tend to forget that our audience is not familiar with all these technical terms. So I'm curious, on this group, do any of you have any recommendations or things that you've done for how you can kind of simplify? Any kind of tips and tricks that you'd like to share with the group? Just put it in the chat. Yeah, see, that's great. We send out a communication to a select few out in the field and ask if they understand what we're communicating. Like that's perfect, right? That's a great idea. I sometimes run test checks for employees. Yep. A section within the benefit guide with definitions of key terms, employer webinars for benefits. We have some resources on our intranet available 24/7 that lays out some of this info. Biweekly infographics sent by company-wide about various benefit topics. I take questions that employees have asked in the past and work them into open enrollment or new hire decisions, kind of like an FAQ, right? All of that feedback. We have an all associate wellbeing newsletter, and we highlight benefit terms and education. We include a handout, understanding your medical insurance with defined terms each year. Yeah, that's a great one. I think testing it with your audience, I'm seeing a lot of that. It's very, very effective. Some feedback. Correct the definition of out-of-pocket maximum is slightly misstated. Okay, thanks for that feedback. Videos on the portal. Highlight important text, enrollment workshops. So all some really, really good tips and tricks. All right, so Nathan, I think back to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Liz. That's really good information to share. And I just love when we can really dig down into kind of getting away from jargon and using different language approaches to make these things more successful. You know, I saw someone mention in the chat that when they're talking about a flexible spending account or an FSA, they really lean into the spending part of that. And when they're talking about a health savings account or an HSA, they really lean into the savings aspect of that to really drive home the fundamental intention of both benefits. I think that's such a great idea. Anything that kind of helps people connect the dots, I think is a wonderful thing. So love that information.
I did see there's a question that Sandy popped in the Q&A. Is WEX's lifestyle benefit taxable income to employees? Yes, it is. So, and just from a process perspective, the way that works is employers are able to run some reporting out of our system and then work with their payroll team to then monthly add that as compensation back via a check. So we have a lot of tools to help facilitate that, but it is.
Thanks, Liz. I appreciate you catching that question. That's very helpful. Appreciate it. So, you know, now that we're beyond looking at just how you can eliminate jargon from your communications and materials, I think the question that you're probably all asking yourself is how do you actually get your employees to really start engaging with their benefits and using them wisely? You know, Liz, since we've already got you going, did you have any ideas that you could share on that topic?
Yeah, so this is really the time. So you've debriefed from annual enrollment or open enrollment. And so now you really have a good amount of kind of airtime, I would say, before you get into the next cycle of open enrollment. So really from February, probably until about August, you have a prime opportunity to really focus on educating employees on how to use their benefits, right? Annual enrollment is all about choosing benefits in the selection process, but, you know, using the airtime in these open months to really focus on how employees can smartly use their benefits, right? So employers that I've seen do this well will establish kind of a calendar, right, to march to throughout the year. So lots of good kind of tips and tricks there. I think we've got some of that on the next few slides. And we also have some documents we can share with you to give you some ideas on how to do that.
Let's go ahead and move on to the next slide where we can talk a little bit about helping employees get the most out of their benefits. Liz, let me first say before I move on, thank you for that feedback. Now, Emma, if it's all right, I have a question for you. What are the top things that we get questions on from participants?
Yeah, thanks, Nathan. I want to just hop back quickly. I think Kayla was on mute there. Maybe she may have had a few things to add to the previous slide. So if we can hop back.
That would be great. Yeah, I was going to piggyback off of Liz on the communication piece. Sending a communication, I see a lot of engagement saying that you are doing focus groups, reaching out to your participants, asking how it went. That is a great way to start off the year and get your feedback early so you can make those changes before the next renewal. I feel like it comes very quickly, even though you feel like you just got done with it. We do recommend sending a communication shortly after the start of the plan year, targeted to each benefit. In this communication, you could share the eligible expenses, and Natalie will input a eligible expense list, which is an excellent resource. Rollover or forfeiture details, when participants can expect the rollover to come in from the prior plan year if the benefit allows for that. Resources to help them understand at their own pace and their own time, so they can kind of recoup from the renewal season as well, because I'm sure they get a lot of communication. So getting that to the participants early so they can review that. And then also contact information for each provider should they have questions is a good one as well.
Okay, now we'll move on. I apologize, Kayla. I walked right over you. That was my fault, everybody. The blame belongs right here. The buck stops here. I overstepped. So thank you very much, Kayla. Now, Emma, I have a question for you. What do you think the top things are that we get questions about from participants?
Yeah, thanks, Nathan. So by far and away, the number one question that we get from participants is, why do I need to submit a receipt, or what type of receipt do I need to submit? So this can be somewhat of a jarring experience for participants, just kind of depending where they came from. So maybe they were someone who has forever been enrolled in a health savings account, and maybe their healthcare costs shifted this year, and now they've enrolled in a flexible spending account. They might be completely not used to having to submit any sort of receipt, and now they might be prompted for that on a more frequent basis. Or maybe this participant was enrolled with a previous administrator who didn't require receipts, or the receipt requirements were a little bit different. Now they're with an administrator who requires receipts more frequently. So we found it helpful to really explain the context of why receipts might be needed. So I know that we alluded to it a little bit previously when we were talking about the jargon slide, but explaining that these plans are funded with pre-tax dollars. And that does mean that we have to make sure that they are spent according to the IRS regulations. So as Liz was talking about earlier, yes, you get that kind of free money in a way. But the flip side of that is that you also have to play by the IRS's rules, making sure that those. So this is a really great opportunity for you to help your participants or your employees understand how their benefits can interact together. So when receipts are requested or required for flexible spending accounts, this is a really great opportunity to advocate for an explanation of benefits from their insurance carrier. So that document is typically going to have all of the required information that an administrator typically needs. So again, we'll get to the kind of digital tools in just a second here, but that's a really easy way where employees can see how their benefits can interact. Go to the appointment, goes to your insurance carrier, you get that nice handy EOB that summarizes your out-of-pocket costs. Keep that, or keep it in your app or file organizer should we need it later. So that's probably the top question that we get asked is why receipts are needed, what type of receipt is needed, and then just helping to explain what happens if a claim is denied. What should I do at that point? So there are frequently we just need a different type of receipt. Maybe the participant has provided a credit card receipt. And while that gives us payment details, that doesn't necessarily give us any details as to what the actual service was or when the service was rendered, which we need to ensure eligibility. So most commonly, participants can just submit a different type of receipt, and that can be processed again for approval. Maybe they can offset the charge. So maybe they spent their funds on something that wasn't eligible, but they paid out of pocket or didn't use their FSA for an eligible expense, and we can just flip-flop those receipts. So there are lots of different options that participants can take in order to avoid repaying their FSA, which is ultimately not what we want to have happen. We want to really advocate for those other options instead of getting to that repayment.
That's such great information, Emma. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm going to continue to pick your brain because I'm learning so much. Could you also share some tips about how we can actually get them using their benefits?
Yeah, yep. You cut out a little bit for me at the end of the question there, but tips to help employees get the most out of their benefits. So as everyone knows on this call, I'm sure we live in a digital age, and your different administrators or benefits providers will likely have apps, online accounts, several digital tools that are available to your employees. So that is one of the number one things that you can recommend is download the apps, set up your online accounts, really get familiar with the experience. So if a receipt is requested for an FSA charge, for example, you already have your insurance app downloaded. Again, you can pull that EOB from that app and just upload it into your FSA app. Some other things that your employees can do is be prepared to receive their debit card if their plan offers one. So a debit card is a great option for participants. Don't have to pay out of pocket and can take the funds directly from their account. A few other things to advocate for in those mobile apps or the online accounts is making sure that all of your administrators or plan sponsors have their most up-to-date information. So do we have your updated demographic information? Is your address correct? Is your email address correct? Your phone numbers? Do you have any dependents that you need to add to your plans? Do you need any extra debit cards, maybe for those dependents? If you have a health savings account, do you have a beneficiary added? Are you able to add a bank account in order to get reimbursed through direct deposit instead of waiting for a check? So lots of different things there to consider to make sure that your benefits really can work for your employees. And then lastly, we've talked a lot about participant education or maybe lack thereof. So what are some of those extra educational resources that are available to them? Does the online account or the mobile app also have a knowledge base or maybe an FAQ section, maybe some handouts or some quick how-to videos that can help your participants really get familiar with the experience, learn all of the best practices so that the benefits can really work for them, not the participant, working against the benefit or trying to play catch up to understand why and when things are required.
Wow. I absolutely love that. It seems like communications are really the key to success in many instances. So as we start to switch gears a little bit and talk about our year-round benefit communications, I'd love, Liz, if you could talk about what other communications you recommend that were sent out throughout the year, or are there certain topics employers should communicate to their employees at certain times?
Sure, absolutely. So I know Emma had some really great kind of tips and tricks, and one of the areas where we do see a lot of opportunity for education is certainly with the use of the FSA, the HSA, those types of accounts. I think more broadly, also, what I see some employers doing, which is very, very effective, is creating an annual calendar, right? So sometimes, think about for example, February is Heart Health Month, right? So there's kind of a topic that you might wrap around if you have any sort of wellness initiatives that kind of align with kind of that theme of, healthy heart. May, for example, is Mental Health Awareness Month. Maybe you take that and use that as an opportunity to educate your employees about the great EAP benefit that you have, right? I think it's, again, taking the time to use these months to, educate employees about all of the benefits that you invest so heavily in, to make sure that there's kind of a foundational understanding. I think that's what's difficult, right? So a lot of employers have all these different, benefits. They may have kind of targeted, programs for different lifestyle issues, or, how do you create kind of a foundational understanding with your participants such that if they have an event or health event that happens in their lives, they immediately know where to turn to get information, right? And they have kind of general awareness about all the great benefits that you have and that you offer. So, we actually have an example of a calendar, I think, that we're going to pop here in the chat. It's just some things that we've seen employers do very effectively. So again, like, use these times, especially in Q2 and Q2 and Q3. Before then, you have to, before you know it, we're going to be back into open enrollment. And so come September, you're going to be gearing up again to focus on how to choose benefits. So really use the time that you have to really focus on educating on how employers can smartly use benefits.
I love that, Liz. I absolutely love the admonition to use the time you have. It seems like each year I blink my eyes and it's open enrollment season again. So great feedback in that regard.
Yeah, I think I would also say, realize that all of the providers that you work with, I'm sure, have a lot of great reference material and collateral that you can leverage. Also for our employers, because we do benefits administration, we have all of that employee data. So we're also able to help support with, targeted communications, whether it be email campaigns or, we have some custom communication capabilities as well. So really look to, your benefit providers and administration providers. Because we have all of that data, we're in a unique position to really help support you with some of these communication initiatives.
Love that. Great feedback, Liz. So the question becomes now, are you ready? We've spent a lot of our time talking about how you as employers can set up employees for success. But in order to do that, it's also important to make sure that you're prepared as well. We certainly want to support employees, but sometimes we need to support the employers as well. Kayla, can you touch on 4 or 5 things that you think employers could be doing to better set themselves up for success during the plan year?
Yes, absolutely. So I pulled a few things that I see and typically for our employers and the issues that occur after open enrollment or things that are missed. So I'll try to go as quick as I can, but some are very detailed. So I maybe not be able to get too deep on them, but it's just a good reminder. For one would be the file feed data. So ensuring whichever TPA you're with, if you have file feeds set up, to ensure that they're passing the correct information. And then also reviewing that file feed. So on the WEX end, we have reporting that will provide what errors are occurring that are sent to the employers so they can see, what's occurring, why an enrollment wasn't added, for an example. This can also ensure that it's not a reoccurring error that goes too far into the calendar year where contributions can be missed. Enrollments aren't passing because of an error that's occurring. It also just alleviates a little more work for HR once it's corrected quickly to alleviate escalations at the end of the plan year. Another one is non-discrimination testing. So non-discrimination testing for highly compensated employees. WEX does offer a service to test your plans. Other TPAs might as well, so I always recommend checking to see what's offered to you for free for employers too. I know that's a good word as well to use for, but we also do offer other templates here for additional fees if you have extra testing or different plans. The IRS does require you to test to be compliant with Section 125 plans. We do recommend testing in the beginning of the year and at the end of the year. We always recommend testing at the beginning of the year. It's also easier to get those highly compensated employees flagged and then get to those election amounts corrected, as it can get a little messier at the end of the plan year. Another one would be, this is a simple one, so not too much heavy work, but reviewing employer contacts, making sure that we have the right contacts and the right seats with the right, if they're a file contact, if they're just for a participant reach out. So if we do need to reach out to you, or your TPAs need to reach out to you, that they have the right people in the right seats so we can get resolution faster for you and your participants. Another one would be notifying WEX, your TPA, of any banking changes. So we see a lot of at the beginning of the year rejections occurring because banking accounts are updated. There's a lot of buttons and a lot of places you also have to do on your end to notify everybody. So sometimes that can get missed. So just a flag of, if you change your bank account, let your TPA know so everything can flow with no extra work for you on your end. And another one, the final one I have here, is plan trends and statistics. So for educating your employer participant issues, so we have reporting that we can run that will advise call-ins, for example, the reasons for calling in, any highly issues that are escalated, that you can see different categories, for examples of where the noise is coming in from and how to alleviate that, and then also have that education for your participants to alleviate future questions that are coming in and less filtering to the HR department.
Love it, Kayla. That's fantastic. I really appreciated you calling out the banking one. Not only have I seen that affect employers negatively, it's impacted myself negatively. So I think keeping people apprised whenever there's any kind of a banking update is just a really good call out. Thank you for that. Well, this is the exciting part of our program, where we're going to move away from the slides as much, and we're really going to try to open this up as a time for a Q&A session. So what questions do you have for our experts or for each other? We'll use the rest of the time to read those out loud and have one of our subject matter experts answer them as they come in. I see that there's a few of the Q&As that have already come in, so let me see what's going on. Will you offer a virtual card soon? Cards are so delayed for 1/1 renewals. Great question. Which of our SMEs would like to answer that?
I can take this one.
Great. Thanks, Emma.
Yes. Yes, we are exploring a virtual card option in the future. Don't have any dates to share, but it is something that we are exploring for the future.
Perfect. Thank you. Oh, I love this one. Anytime we get to start talking about claims and substantiation and documentation, it gets to be a lot of fun. So the question is, if you send in an EOB, why would WEX deny the claim if insurance covered it? Okay, who wants to take this one? Emma, it looks like you're ready to go.
Yes, I can take this one too. So yeah, this is a great question. And this is a great question that we frequently get from participants as well. So the easiest way to explain this one is that we basically can't cover the cost of something twice. So if your insurance is covering it, that means that it is not your out-of-pocket responsibility. So you wouldn't be able to also cover that same cost with your FSA. This frequently comes up specifically on dental charges. It seems to come up more frequently where the dental receipt maybe has like an estimated insurance, and your TPA is likely taking that estimated insurance into account as well when they're processing that claim documentation. So best document, again, is that actual EOB instead of a statement from a provider, and just to avoid that double dipping. So if insurance is covering it, you wouldn't also be able to cover it with your FSA.
And Robin, I see that you put in that insurance didn't cover it. We would love to take this offline and maybe look at it a little bit more deeply. Unfortunately, once we start getting into too many specifics with regard to why something was covered or why it wasn't, we could run into a HIPAA situation, at least in the live setting. So by all means, let's follow up and we can dig into that a little bit deeper for you if that'd be all right. Ooh, fun. There is a new question in here that is very strategic in nature. So get ready, Smeeze. I'm going to lead on you heavy for this one. The question is, do you have any suggestions for employers whose management won't let us do employee surveys, or suggestions on getting feedback and trying to get improvements on dates? Who would like to take that one? Kind of a strategy when there's some constraints in place.
Yeah, I can take that, Nathan. So I would say, and I understand that, right? You may have an organization policy that you don't want your employees to be kind of surveyed to death and get survey fatigue. I would say one way to come at that is, depending on your organization, if there are HR partners, chances are those HR partners kind of know and understand and have a good, fingers on the pulse of what went well and what didn't go well. So you might think about tapping into those. The other thing, it won't really help you certainly for this year, but something to think about for the next cycle is your benefits administrator might have some tools where you might be able to capture this more real time. So for example, we have 2 surveys that we do. One is an after call survey in our service center. It's just a real quick, like, hey, tell me about your experience today. And 2 is a after enrollment poll. So after an employee completes the annual enrollment experience, there's a poll that they can answer. And we have some flexibility to put some additional questions in there that are customized by, employer. If there's some quick hit kind of pulse type of information that you're looking to collect kind of at the time of the enrollment experience. So, those things probably something to think about for the next cycle. But like current, if you really want to tap into that feedback, my suggestion would be to organize some, just sessions with your HR folks, because chances are they'll have pretty good fingers on the pulse.
Thank you so much, Liz. That's great advice. Okay, I see a couple of questions that have come in that are kind of connected, so I'm going to try to do a tag team approach on these. So is there a report to run to see which employees' cards are suspended? And as kind of an addendum to that question, are there reports that can show us who's not even utilizing their FSA card? And how do we find those reports? Who would like to take that answer? I'm guessing this is maybe in your wheelhouse, Kayla?
Yep, happy to. So we have reports on our end. It's called an account balance detail report. You can actually see the spending and who is using their benefits. You can see the claims have been submitted, what their available amount is. So for someone who is not with WEX that's on the call, you could also go to your TPA and see what reporting that you have available. But that's a great way to see what engagement is and see where the funds are being spent. As far as debit card suspension, we have special reporting that we can run on the back end. This is not something that would be available to you in your online account, for example, to just go ahead and run a report to see whose debit card is suspended. That would take just a little bit extra work on the back end. But we can absolutely look in to see, who is suspended and what is occurring. And if it's the detail would take a little more with the regard to, it could be suspended to Emma's example of a claim denial, right? So there's multiple different factors for reasoning.
Love it. Thank you, Kayla. We got another question, and this one's a good one too. Can you elaborate a little bit more on the 125 non-discrimination testing? Kayla, I see a smile on your face. Would you like to take this one as well?
Yep. So for any, the federal government does require employers who offer Section 125 plans to perform non-discrimination testing by the last day of each year within the plan year to demonstrate there is no discrimination between highly compensated employees or key employees and other employees. So that's where, for WEX, for example, we have a non-discrimination testing that there's a template that you go in. There's a lot of different things you have to complete, so that can be a little overwhelming, but there's a key, if you will, to see where you can find that data. But after you populate that template, results will come out, and it'll advise on if there is any highly compensated employees that's not fully eligible for the benefit. So for example, the most common one would be dependent care FSA. If they take out $5,000 for the election, they might only be eligible because they're a highly compensated employee for $2,500. So you would have to reduce the election for that amount. So there's lots of different variables that come with non-discrimination testing, but it is a requirement. So that's why we always recommend going in the beginning and the end of the plan year to make sure you're staying within regulations.
Thank you so much, Kayla. I really appreciate that additional elaboration. So what can happen when an employee enrolls and is loaded January 1st, but then quits or maybe even is terminated in February? Who would like to take that answer? Kayla.
I can take that one too. So for FSA, for example, say I elected the full medical FSA January 1, and you can use all your full dollars on day one. So they could have already spent the funds, for example, and then they are terminated with a February 1st termination date. Whatever the plan setup allows for, so the termination, so the most common that I see is 90-day run out, so they can file claims with dates of service of their termination and prior to exhaust the balance in their account. And then after that, they would then, if they elect COBRA, which I am not a COBRA expert, so I'm not even going to go into details on that, but that's how they can exhaust those. For a dependent care FSA, of course, I'm sure I'm beating a drum here, but they only can use as they contribute. So same final filing date, 90 days, they can submit claims prior to that final service date and beyond, or prior to the term, and then the funds would be recontributed back to the plan for the employer. So depending on how your plans are set up. So lots of different variables when you have new hires and then terminations right away.
Boy, does it sound like it. I'm glad that you're the expert on that front, Kayla. Thank you so much for answering that question. Okay, do we have any suggestions on collecting unsubstantiated funds if an employer's plan year is in 2 separate years? So collecting unsubstantiated funds if the plan is on an off-calendar plan year.
So I'm just going to elaborate on this question. Are you asking what we do with funds that are not? I'm trying to read. I'm trying to finally found the question here. Any suggestions on collecting? So filing claim documentation, is that what you're asking? I just want to be sure on the question before I go too far in. Feel free to put in general chat too if that helps, because I'm watching.
Go ahead, Crystal, and put your additional kind of content in the chat. Kayla will keep an eye out there, and we'll keep going on with questions, but we'll circle back. Promise we'll circle back, Crystal. Okay, would WEX's FSA cover part of a procedure that started with a previous employer's plan?
I can hop in on this one. If the expense is eligible, it's really going to depend on the type of plan that you're enrolled in, and then it is also going to depend on the service date. So if it was a service that was effective or took place before the start of your current plan, it's likely not going to be eligible, especially if we're talking like an FSA, for example. But for FSA eligibility, it typically doesn't matter if it was under like a previous insurance, for example. So the service date is really what we would be mostly concerned about there, and whether or not that falls within your plan dates.
Love it. Thank you so much, Emma. Oh, this goes back to the account balance detail report. How or where do I find that report?
If you're with WEX, I can't speak for other TPAs, but you would find that within your online portal. You can run it under reports, and it's a generated report that you can run on demand. So you would just go through LEAP, go to benefits admin portal, reports, and then you can do renew report in the upper right-hand corner. It's a blue button, and then you can pick the report that you'd want to run. So it was specific to what date parameters and plan year you want.
Thanks, Kayla.
Yeah.
If an employee charges the card but has not provided the supporting document, do you then send out a 1099 at the end of the year?
Sorry, I was on mute there. We do not send any 1099s for FSAs.
Thank you very much, Emma. I love how you're just ready to go with that answer, because I was going, I have no idea. So thank you. So back to the EOB and dental conversation. There are instances where dental insurance doesn't offer an EOB. I've run into that. A person only has the final bill after insurance from the dental office asking for reimbursement for what was paid out of pocket. This is sometimes not enough as far as substantiation, according to WEX. What suggestions can you offer?
Yeah, great question. And I think just looking at the time, this will probably be our last one. So there are really 4 pieces of information that we're looking for on a receipt. We're looking for the date of service, the type of service, the dollar amount, and the provider name. If we can get a dental bill that shows the patient responsibility, that's really what we're looking for. So we say an EOB for dental because that's typically easiest. Oftentimes, dental provider bills will show like an estimated insurance, and that doesn't always play nicely with really finding out what the participant's true responsibility was. So if we can see what insurance actually paid and we can see the patient responsibility and all of the service details, that's what we would be looking for.
Awesome. Thank you, Emma. And as we look at the top of the hour, we're just about there. So we're going to go ahead and wrap things up. But let me just say it's been great to have you join us today. On behalf of myself and our team of subject matter experts, we just want to say thank you for taking some time with us. We truly hope that you have found this information valuable, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
WEX is in the business of simplifying benefits for everyone. Now, although we certainly hope our podcast sparks some aha moments, like that was pretty cool, but of course we cannot provide legal, investment, or financial advice. And, well, therefore, nothing shared in this podcast should be interpreted as such. We encourage you to seek out appropriate professional advice regarding your plans. Hey, congratulations! You made it through our disclaimer. Thanks for listening.